Namaste. Welcome to our 39th talk on the Bhagavad Gita. In our last talk, I actually missed the very end of the ninth verse of the seventh chapter. Go back and read the complete one. The part I commented on is, I am the pure fragrance in the earth, and the brilliance within fire, the life in all beings. So this is, of course, all this is a manifestation of God. Okay, the final phrase, and the tapasya of ascetics. Now, this is very important. Okay, fine, God is a radiance in the fire, what He's what shines in the sun. But you and I are the tapaswans. We're the ones that do tapasya. And tapasya is not a thing, it's a practice. So you cannot separate the tapaswan from the tapasya. Therefore, two things are happening when you and I sit for meditation and when we're doing japa throughout the day. One, the practice itself is divine and is the presence of the divine. Otherwise, it couldn't lead to the divine, you see. You have to begin with what you plan to end with. So, it itself is divine. And then we are. Our divinity is coming into manifestation, is beginning to dawn. It may be only a gray light in the darkness, but it's still light and it's not darkness anymore. So we are one with God when we do tapasya. And God is manifesting in the world with us when we do meditation. That's rather awesome, isn't it? Know that I am the eternal seed of all beings. In other words, they often they use the word bindu. Bindu means just a point, a spot. Sometimes the word spota. And there's just that little spot, that little stress point in eternity that expands and expands and expands and becomes the whole of relative existence, from higher worlds to the lowest worlds. And every sentient being is living inside of Brahman and has the consciousness of Brahman. And therefore, in a sense, is or are Brahman. Therefore, God is the seed of everything that exists and is everything that exists. You often find in people that think they're non-dual teachers and so on, this just vague talk that has a lot of slogans that are incomprehensible. And there are some people think if it's incomprehensible, it must be profound. But it isn't. In fact, words are meant for communication. So if it doesn't communicate, it's not only not profound, it's foolishness. So remember that when they start talking in the great highways and they'll say, oh, it was so hard to understand that great, subtle, esoteric talk. Yeah. All right. I am the eternal seed of all beings, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the splendor of the splendid. In other words, no matter how much you and I developed, no matter how much we evolved, no matter how great we will eventually manifest, for the word of a name, the word used for a great person is Mahatma, great Atma, Mahapurusha, great Purusha. They mean the same thing. So greatness is in us. And there's no place here for the, oh, I know I'm not as evolved. God doesn't need to be evolved. Now, you and I are clothed in this uh, bubble, and it does need to evolve. But the real part of us isn't what evolved. In other words, is the sculptor the sculpture? No. Yet he's not a sculptor if he doesn't make sculpture. So that's what it is with us. I am the strength of the strong. The basic idea later on, Krishna will say, wherever you see any power, any glory, anything of value, know I am there. And in a sense, we could say, know I am that. So you see, the last thing a yogi should do is be thinking, oh, I'm a sinner, I'm weak, you're not. That's the lie about you. So quit being a liar to yourself, and wake up. I am the strength of the strong, free from desire and passion. Because these imply that we lack something, that we have to get something to be satisfied, content, and to be complete. And that's a delusion. I am but, he says desire, but he says now, I am the desire in beings that is according to Dharma. In other words, the desire for higher consciousness, the desire for a higher and more pure life, the desire for a better understanding. That is a manifestation of God. So our spiritual aspiration is really, in a sense, in our life, the appearance of God. See, we always think, well, a great light would appear and some thunderous voice would talk to us out of the light, and that can happen. But the fact is, God isn't just with us, God is in us, and God is manifesting in us. You're sitting there watching and listening because you have that dharmic desire, which is the very operation and presence of the divine infinite self. You're really quite important. And that's not a joke. Know that sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic states of being proceed from me. We're going to have a whole section on the three gunas. Tamas is basic static condition, but it's also stability. That's a positive side. Rajas is changing, moving, living as a condition. And sattva is an observant condition centered in our consciousness that illumines whatever we are considering or seeing. And that these three are very important. They'll be covered very thoroughly later on. But they all come from God. They don't come from Maya. They're reflected in Maya, but they don't come from Maya. And they don't come from just ourselves. They are coming from God. So God is manifesting in us at every moment. Every one of us is an avatar, in a sense, is an incarnation of God. But we have to awaken into that and be able to manifest that. That takes time. But I am not in them, they are in me. And we should understand that about ourselves. Whether we're lazy, whether we're vigorous, whether we're active, whether we're quiet and calm, whether we're agitated, or whether we feel exalted, it all comes from us. That's it. It begins and ends in us. Now, the us of us is higher, but it comes down. You see, you take two mirrors and you oppose them, and they start reflecting each other, and it looks like an endless succession of mirrors. And the Self Realization Fellowship Center in Hollywood was a beautiful, beautiful little church. And Yogananda had designed it, and he'd also furnished it. And when you walk through the outer door, which led into kind of a vestibule, there were two really marvelous mirrors. I mean, they were not just things you could buy at a furniture store, they were super high quality, the best I'd ever seen. And they were opposite to each other. So when you turned and looked at one, you saw what looked like a measureless corridor of mirror images. You were just one, but look, there were so many images of you. So we too are one, and many. This is extremely important. That we should never lose sight of our inner essence and our inner presence. All this world is deluded. I think we can agree to that. All this world is deluded by the three states produced by the gunas. It does not perceive me, who am higher than these and eternal. And the more we identify with the world and the outside part of us, the less we really perceive of reality. And the more we are identified back within us, getting beyond even those states to that which is the witness of the state, then we're more real. A lot of people are just dreams. They're just bundles of cliches and conditionings, no original thought whatsoever, no original aspiration whatsoever. If they can't see it in a movie, they don't even think of gaining it. But the other kind, the stand outers, as you and I should be, don't identify with the not self. All this world is deluded by the three states produced by the gunas. It does not perceive me, who am higher than these and eternal. And that's the truth about ourselves. Even if we don't perceive ourselves, yet we still are higher even than our delusion or our limitations, and we too are eternal. So you see how we have to come to have not just a concept of ourselves that's right, but right consciousness itself, the right experience of ourself. This is essential. Otherwise, what are we? I mean, it is really true that at one level, you can rate your life as BY and AY, before yoga and after yoga, because things didn't really begin for us until we started to move in and take charge of our whole being. However, it's a wonderful aspiration. It's very high, very noble. Truly, this Maya of mine, made of the gunas, is difficult to go beyond. So, do you have your work clothes on? Do you have your work shoes on? I remember my wonderful naturopathic doctor, Dr. Joseph Leonard, who was also MD, medical doctor. You see, he had God, he was born in Germany and under the Kaiser's government, not under Hitler's government. He got out when Hitler came into power, but he was renowned for just his brilliance in medicine, and the German government sent him throughout the world to study indigenous medicines. He lived with the Eskimos. He lived with the Bedouins, and he was a miracle. He was a marvel. Well, anyway, of course, he went to India, and he went to South India because he wanted to study Ayurveda. And I don't know who had informed him or how it was known, but there was a great Ayurvedic practicer and teacher who was also a sannyasi, Swami Krishnananda. So he went to Swami Krishnananda, and it's a little extraneous, but it's so interesting. I think you might like to hear it. Um, the first thing Krishnananda did was, and I'm going to be embarrassed if I've told this to you before, there were, say, about 24 people who wanted to study with you, who from outside India. So he asked every one of them, "What do you think of India?" And of course, they all said these nice things. And he came to Dr. Lenergy. He left him for last. I have an idea he knew. He said, "What do you think of India?" He said, "The philosophy is wonderful and the application is lousy." That was his word. He liked this in English. I heard him say lousy a lot. Krishnananda said, "You're the one." He said all the rest away. All right. Now, part of, you see, Ayurveda is a divine science. So you can't split it. A materialist should not bother to study and practice Ayurveda. Ayurveda is spiritual. So, for part of his training, Swami Krishnananda said, "I'm going to take you to one of the greatest yogis of India, who is basically unknown, but we're going to go and spend some time with him. I want you to have that experience." Now, this yogi, by the way, I say is unknown and says unmet. Rumors of him were everywhere, and people were very interested in, they thought, into going to see him. So the word went out that Krishnananda was going to see this great yogi. But let's backtrack a little. Krishnananda said, "All right, on such and such a date, we'll be going." He named 6 months ahead. He said, "Until then, we've got to prepare ourselves." Well, Dr. Linder thought 6 months. Yes. He said, "Tomorrow morning, you're up at 4 o'clock. And then you come here and we'll start preparing." Well, the preparing was incredible exercise. Running and running and running and climbing trees and going through all kinds of terrain. And I mean, really toughening themselves up. And naturally, the doctor said, "Why are we doing all this?" And he's also called Rishi Krishnananda. Rishi Krishnananda said, "You can't climb the mountains in house slippers. You've got to have climbing boots." And it's the same with us. And so we have to have the body to be able to go. Now, when the time was just a day or two before they were going to leave, newspaper reporters showed up. A lot of philosophers, aspiring yogis, and even newsreel people with their cameras and everything. And Krishnananda had told him that the yogi lived actually in a very small cave. So Dr. Linenger said, "Well, how we all got in the cave?" He said, "Oh, you and I are going to be the only people in that cave. These people are not going to manage. So again, so they made this long. First of all, it was an incredibly long trek to the mountain range, and by that time, most were gone. And then there was a hill, and so at the end, only the two of them were there. So Dr. Linenger used to say a lot to his patients, you can't climb a mountain on house slippers. And he learned that practically by Rishi Krishnananda. Therefore, I've mentioned before, the kind of focus on it says, so I strapped on my boots strapped on my shoes and I started. Yes, it's good to have a walking staff too for that journey. In fact, there we have in the Bible, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. How do they comfort you? By getting you through that steep climb. So even there, David is implying that to us. Only those who think it is worth it will then ever be able to make the effort because they won't have motivation. Verily, only those who attain me shall pass beyond this maya. Well, that's logical because only God, only the Brahman, the Absolute, the Parampurusha, is beyond maya. And once you find him, you are beyond maya, even if you're living here in the world, you see it all around you. Your consciousness isn't in maya anymore. Or, if you wish to put it, you don't see maya anymore, you see the divine pretending to be maya. It's like when we were children, maybe our parents or others, they maybe, I don't know, put a mask on or did something and sort of, and we knew it was just a game. It came at us, we're going to get you, etc. And we ran and we felt scared. We enjoyed feeling scared. But then when it was over, the mask was off. And so that's just exactly how it is in the life for the realization of the divine. So no wonder the word lila, play, sport, is used about even the creation of God. God is simply having fun. And that's the secret of being a real yogi. I have a very serious yoga. Yes, I know my Guruji is. Huh. The yogi is happier than anybody you've ever met. And the yogi is the most optimistic person you can meet. And therefore, a cheerful person. Abhaya, no fear, no anxiety, no worry. Evildoers, the lowest of men. I don't think we have a hard time thinking that people who do evil are certainly the lowest of humans. Bereft of knowledge by Maya, yet understand this. Evil is not the nature of anyone. It can be the nature of our prakriti, the shakti of our being, our minds, our feelings, our thoughts, our desires, and our karmas. Yes, yes. They can be evil in the sense of they're destructive to us, they harm us. But the real evil is not having jnana, is not having knowledge, not understanding what is real, what is unreal, and acting on it. If you don't act on it, nothing happens. You're in the building catches on fire, everybody yells fire, fire, the fire alarms go off, everybody runs out, but a fool sits there and burns up. So, evildoers, the lowest of men, bereft of knowledge by Maya, do not seek me. And since they're lazy and they don't want to see God, they do their best to say God isn't there. Therefore, how can you expect me to seek what doesn't exist? Okay? For they are attached to a demonic mode of existence. Now, they're not demons, they are divine jivas. but they're acting like a demon. Now you see, no one is a thief by nature, but if you steal, all right, you're a thief within the context of this world. If you kill somebody, you're a killer. So we're not demons, but we act like demons. And we think and we feel like demons. And therefore, in that moment, we are demons. There may be quote marks around us, but oh, there we are. You know, there are people that act the parts of villains in both motion pictures and on television. And there are people who, when they meet them, they act like they're the bad person that they've been seeing. Of course, they're very smart, but not everybody is so smart. In fact, I saw a woman interviewed. This was 1968. In 1968, at the University of Illinois, she was interviewed on the university television station. And she was the major figure in the most successful soap opera on TV. And she said that and she played the villainess. She played the bad person. And she said, people have come up on the street in New York, people on the street have come up to me and slapped me and began swearing at me for what a terrible person I was. Well, that's hard to believe a rational being would think what they saw on television was real. But how rational then are we? By the way, I also saw an interview with the heroine, and she said that she could not believe that when she had difficulties, and of course, naturally, she had that she was in love with, ultimately, she was married to, and she said she got these letters saying, "Dear, just hold on. I know what you're going through. I went through it in my marriage, or I went through it in my time, my engagement." And then in some of the episodes, her husband had a girlfriend on the side. And she said she got thousands of letters that said, "I don't want to upset you, but you need to know your husband is cheating on you." Think about that. That is scary. But you know something? Being in his world is really scary. Hollywood's never come up with a scare movie more scary than what's really happening to you and I right now at this at this very moment, because we are asleep with eyes wide open, looking but not seeing. I see I've gone beyond our time. I apologize. It's just too enjoyable talking to you because I can't see you and I don't know who all will hear this, but I know real people are out there that will listen and will be interested in becoming more and more real. So, having gone about half the time over, namaste, namaste. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Till the next time.